So I don't have tea this time because I'm feeling a little under the weather, and somehow the tea that I have makes my throat drier. So with my throat feeling kind of funky, and on top of that, the stuff that I drank making it drier just doesn't work out very well. So we're having pseudo tea talk. We're having pseudo tea talk with just my water. Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today is another tea talk, and this time I'm going to be talking about The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So for those of you guys who don't know, The Cruel Prince is about Jude and her sisters, Vivi and Taryn, who are kidnapped at a young age after her parents had been murdered by a Fae general. And these three children are both taken to their to the fairy world in Elfheim, I believe. Yes, Elfheim, where they have been raised as fairies thus far. And Jude, kind of being sick of being treated like dirt because, you know, discrimination against humans and all that, decides that she wants to be a fairy knight, and the only way for her to jump from the ranks is to kind of start playing their really ugly fairy games and see which one, and see how she can make her way up that like really greasy ladder to see if she can finally find a place in this fairy world that she was kind of thrown into without much of her say. Now, my first thoughts when I started this book was I was really excited on the concept. I thought that this was like I haven't heard of this concept before, and I was really excited to like see it become a 2018 release and become so popular so quickly. I love fairies, as you guys may know, so hearing that like one of the more popular 2018 releases is going to be about fairies excited me so much, especially since apparently Holly Black is like the fairy queen of writing. So I wanted to see what she would bring to the table in terms of fairies and how her concept of fairies would differ from other fairy concepts and whatnot. I also really was praying that it was going to be about like the more disturbing kind of fae, the ones with like different colored skin, different colored hair, the flora in their hair, just kind of a more, not, I don't want to say demonic, but more fantastical version of fairies, and not so much the very pretty fairies that we see in like media nowadays, where they're still humanoid, but they're just prettier. I also really love the color scheme of the US cover. I love the color scheme of the UK cover. I believe that was the one with the white and the gold. But I also really like this one because it reminds me of a book of mine, the novel that I'm writing, because the color scheme of the country and the royalty is black and gold. So this was really like, it just gets me in the mood and it makes me so happy. Like, just look at how pretty this cover is. I also wanted to know how the politics was going to work, especially since the description implied that Jude was going to have to jump through some hoops or break some laws or go against some of the royalty. So I wanted to see exactly what the politics of this world implied for Jude, and for someone who is a human who is trying to get through this like life of a fairy and whatnot, and how that was going to work. So going off of what I did like about this book, I thought that the main character is pretty unlikable, and I like that about her. Normally it takes me a long time to warm up to unlikable characters, and for the most part it didn't take me that long at all to warm up to Jude. I thought that her unlikability made her more likable, if that makes any kind of sense. I thought that like actually I thought that all of the main characters were pretty unlikable. So it was just kind of me picking which one of the more unlikable characters I didn't completely despise, and somehow I couldn't seem to find a character that I didn't despise so much. I mean, I had my moments, but so far I just haven't found one yet. I thought that I loved the descriptions. I thought that they were so beautiful and so poetic, and I could just read them days on end and just enjoy and be so immersed in this culture, and like how she did the world building between the fairy world and the human realm, and kind of how that works out in terms of how great they get along together, or how they don't know about each other's like existence, or how well the humans know about that, or how fairies and humans get along kind of situation. I fell in love with the Fae royalty, which is really weird to say. Like, they were all terrible assholes, but they were just beautifully written assholes. Like, some of them had morals, some of them were terrible but still had morals, and I just really enjoyed that. They were just kind of these gray area characters who just wanted the throne, and everyone was kind of rooting for this one guy and not so much the other guy, and it all kind of worked out terribly in the end, and I just enjoyed it so much to be able to read about that. I also really like some of the plot twists. I thought that they worked really well with the the story and kind of showed the Fae culture, if that makes sense. They were very cruel to each other and cruel to their own people and even to their own loved ones. So it was just like double whammies all around, and I really enjoyed that Holly Black didn't shy away from this intent, like this cruelty that the Fae had on each other, against humans, and even on like themselves, which is really something else. I thought that the end, like all the things leading up to the ending was done really well. It was kind of like a really fast but also slow build as to what was going on, and I was kind of surprised. And I thought that it was like slow but also kind of fast paced leading up to it, and I wanted to say I saw it coming. Like there was a small part of me that wasn't surprised when I was reading, but there was another part of me that was like, oh my freaking god, what? So I was really excited to hear about that, and I wanted to see what else happened, but it seemed like the story ended right when things were getting good. So I'm kind of upset about that. Kind of segueing into the fact, I thought that there's a lot of room for a sequel. I think that, I mean, there is a sequel coming out. It's called The Wicked King, so I'm really excited. But I am really excited for the sequel, and I think that the sequel will just tie up a lot of loose ends that were left and give us a lot more of the things that are missing, which is also going into the next thing that I'm going to be talking about, which is the things I did not like. So I really have no freaking idea what the hell happened, but the last chunk of my footage gone. Like, it shows me editing stuff on my laptop, and then it cuts out. You never see me turning it off. So I'm assuming it just died and didn't want to record anymore, which is great. But we're gonna go ahead and finish up this video. So as for things I didn't like how the politics went or worked in the story. There wasn't a lot of explanation, and you think with Jude having been there for the majority of her life and wanting to be part of this like society, more so as a person who knows everything rather than someone who's sitting outside, we get more explanation, but that never happened. So I was just kind of confused as to how she got her way up to essentially the top without explaining the politics or how fairies actually worked. So I was really disappointed in not getting politics, which is kind of weird because it was just the entire point of the story is about the politics, and there wasn't a lot of that in there. Like I said, she rose through the ranks really quickly, which I didn't understand because there wasn't a lot of time in the story for her to understand what the ranks were, and all of a sudden she's at the top, and they all just kind of accepted it. There was no pushback from the rest of the people, rest of the Fae who had been there longer. They just kind of accepted her as the head of the entire thing, when the head used to be part of the royalty beforehand. So I wanted more explanation on that, and it just happened way too fast for me to even comprehend how she went from being trained to being essentially the head of this entire organization. While I liked the build up to the ending, I didn't like how quickly the ending had happened. There wasn't a lot of time for you to figure out what was going on. There wasn't a lot of time for you to kind of relax. You get that time toward the end, but I feel like that's still not enough. Like, there was just a lot of events happening and a lot of things I didn't quite personally understand, and it didn't explain if the characters knew what they were getting into or knowing the kind of trouble they were going to be in by doing this. It just kind of happened, and I just didn't enjoy it. I feel like there could have been a lot more explanation and a lot more time for the readers to really exhale and try to figure out what was going on, and there just wasn't a lot of time for that, and I was expecting that to happen, and it didn't. There was also an unnecessary love story thing that happened in here that I felt would have been way better without it there. I just feel that Jude didn't seem very into the romance, but it seemed to have been going so far, going pretty far in the romance and the relationship, and all of a sudden it just died, and I wasn't a fan of that. There was also a weird triangle square kind of situation, and I wasn't a fan of that either. I felt that we could have gotten more about the Fae world without that hint of romance in there, as well as it plays off some weird abuse thing where the guy abuses the girl, and the girl finds out they're attracted to one another, and it all works out in the end, and I wasn't a fan of that either. It is 2018. We don't need these tropes in our novels anymore. Come on, you guys. We can have better tropes elsewhere, and we can overuse other tropes. Give me the ones where they hate each other from afar but don't physically injure each other, and then they just kind of fall in love with each other. something that isn't like him bullying her into submission and then her being like, oh my goodness, I'm in love with this man. But those words were never dropped. So hopefully we get all of that wrapped up in the sequel. I just felt like that the love story and the weird like love triangle square thing didn't work toward the plot very well or develop any of the characters whatsoever. So for my final thoughts, it was definitely a good book. I enjoyed reading it from like first page to last page. Some parts definitely need more fleshing out. I really hope that with a sequel coming out, we'll have more page time and more development of the characters in general. Those parts kind of kept me from immersing myself in the book, really. It just wasn't, those parts I wanted more explanation out of, and we just didn't get it. I am, however, excited to see what happens in the sequel, and I will be continuing on with this series. But overall, I would give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend this to anyone who loves fae, like fairies and whatnot, but I would just tell them to be patient because hopefully in the sequel things will get better. But that is it for my tea talk on The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. If you guys shared the same thoughts or want to talk more about it, leave those in the comments below. Be sure to tag your spoilers for those who haven't read it yet. All of my social media links are down below, so go ahead and check those out. I try to post something frequently on my Instagram. If you like more of these videos, I do them monthly, so hit subscribe and you'll see one hopefully soon. Other than that, I upload every Wednesday and Saturday unless something happens, and I'll push it back to Sunday and Thursday. I'll see you guys on Saturday.